Hey guys, I'm JIA and today I'm going to show you how you can cut your own jilbabs using the jilbab sewing patterns. Before we start cutting, let's talk about all the materials you will need for this process. First thing that you are going to need is the assembled sewing pattern, which includes front, back, head panel, skirt sheet and the jilbab checklist. Then you are going to need a measuring tape or a ruler, marking tool of your choice, scissors, pins and lastly fabric. If you are using cotton or linen type fabrics like I am using, rinse these in water and let dry before cutting. This will prevent shrinkage after sewing. Also iron out any creases for more accurate cutting. Now let's talk about how to fold your fabric for cutting. We will fold lengthwise, which means folding from selvage to selvage. Selvages are the finished edges of your fabric, as you can see. So align both selvages together to create a lengthwise fold. Also, when you are folding, make sure there aren't any creases or wrinkles and keep the fold line as straight as possible. Then pin the fabric in place to make sure it doesn't move when you cut. Now take your front pattern and align it with the fold line, making sure it is straight and it's not moving out of place. If your pattern isn't aligning, you can adjust the fabric to make it fit better. The pattern doesn't need to perfectly align, it just needs to be close enough. After you are happy with the placement of the pattern, pin to secure. Then get the marking tool of your choice and mark around the pattern. Once done marking, fold the pattern sleeve where the fabric ends like shown. After marking, remove the pins from the pattern and pin the fabric below to keep it in place. Then get your scissors and cut on marked lines. Once you are done cutting, if you wish, you can trim off the selvage for a cleaner look, or if your selvage is noticeable. I will keep mine as it is not that obvious. Once you have finished cutting the front, keep the top piece as we will use it to cut out the sleeves next. To cut the sleeves, fold the bottom edge over to the top like shown. Then flip upside down and pin to secure. Then get your pattern where you folded the sleeve and place on the edge of the fabric. Make sure that the pattern fold aligns with the fabric edge perfectly. If you wish, you can trim off the selvage and then place the pattern. After placing the pattern, pin to secure and mark. Once marked, remove the pattern, pin and cut. After cutting, you will have two sleeves that look something like this. For the back, we are going to get the remaining fabric and fold it lengthwise like we did before. Then take the front pattern and align and pin like we did before. After pinning, get the back pattern piece and align with the bottom of the front pattern like shown and pin in place to secure. After pinning both pattern pieces, mark around the pattern. Once done marking, remove the pattern and cut. Once you are done cutting the back, keep this top piece as we will use this to cut out the head panel. The piece will look like this and you will need the head panel pattern piece for this section. Before we start cutting the head panel, we will need to sew the both fabric pieces together along the selvage, which is the straight edge. The fabric piece should look like this once you're done sewing, and when you open it, it should look like this. So start by folding the smaller end of the fabric on top of the bigger end and turn it around. Then pin to secure and get your pattern and align with the seam. Seam is the stitching that we did earlier. Do not place the pattern over the seam, make sure it is placed against it like shown. Then pin the pattern in place and mark around it like shown. Then mark down at this point where there is a straight line on the pattern and remove the pins and the pattern. After removing the pattern, mark a little line like shown into the marked area. After marking, cut like shown and then cut a little notch where we marked inside the area. After cutting, the head panel will look like this. There is also another way of cutting the head panel if you do not want to sew. But for this, you will have to wait till the end after you have finished cutting the skirt to see if you have any remaining fabric left. We will cut the skirt in the next video, so come back when you've done so. After cutting the skirt, you might have some remaining fabric left, which we will use to cut the head panel. If you do not have any remaining fabric, then just follow method 1 to cut the head panel. Fold the fabric piece in half and then fold again. Then pin to secure and place the pattern on top and pin to secure. Then mark around the pattern like we did for method 1, and from here follow the same steps we did for method 1. After cutting, your head panel will look like this, then iron to flatten it. For cutting the skirt, we will need the skirt sheet which comes with the info pack, and you will need to look at the measurements for your size. I am size medium, so my length will be 44 inches and width 41 inches. After getting the measurements, we will start cutting. There are two types of skirt you can cut. Skirt A, which is easier but is less in width, and skirt B is a full skirt. Skirt B is my favorite as it is very comfortable, especially when you sit down. So let's start with skirt A. Start by folding the fabric in half, selvage to selvage like we've been doing, and make sure the top edge is straight. If it's not straight because of previous cutting, then draw a straight line across, trim and pin to secure. Then get a measuring tape and mark your length that we got earlier from the skirt sheet on both edges and join. If you make a mistake like this, that's fine, just measure again and mark. Then cut on the mark line. After cutting from the bottom edges, mark 4.5 inches like shown. Then cut on the little marked point on the selvage edge and then cut straight on the folded edge like shown. After cutting, your skirt will look like this, and it is now complete. Now let's see how to cut skirt B. For this, again, make sure that the top edge is straight and then fold the fabric in half, selvage to selvage, and pin to secure. Then mark your length edge to edge and join. After joining, measure the width and note it down. In this case, it is 29.5 inches, so I will make a note of it and cut the fabric. After cutting, you will have this piece of fabric left, which we will open and lay in a single layer. Then mark your length again like you did earlier several times like shown. Then get the total width of the skirt from the skirt sheet and the width that you measured earlier and subtract. Then times the answer by 2 and this will give you your new width. Then mark the new width from the bottom to the top like shown and join. After joining, cut on the mark line and you've finished cutting the skirt. So just a quick recap, take your full width and take away with what you've measured and then times that by 2. After cutting skirt B, you will have 2 pieces like this. And now you can tick off your checklist because you've officially finished the cutting process.